Okay, today's Daf Bezos Hashem is Daf Yomi Kesubos. So our topic today, topic from yesterday, what we left off was concerning whether a person could do biyah the first time, have intercourse the first time with a basula, with a virgin, on Shabbos. What could be wrong with it? What's he doing wrong? So the simple way is to learn that you're actually causing her to bleed, and you're wounding somebody. And by wounding somebody, it's like that's one of the lamates malachas, comes under the lamates malachas of shechita, taking blood from somebody because she's going to bleed, and therefore it's usher on Shabbos. That's not your intention, right? But that's not your intention. But nevertheless, she's bleeding. Another reason why it possibly could be usher is even if it's not considered to be wounding somebody, because we learned the blood is deposited there. But the reason why it's usher is because you're making a Pesach. You're making an opening wider. And because you're making the opening wider, so therefore it's much easier to do future intercourse, future be'ilas with this woman. So it's like creating a Pesach. It's like building a Pesach. An example that we gave yesterday is if you have a small window in a room and then you start knocking out bricks to make it a bigger, larger window, that's binyan, that's building something. So you're building something within the woman to be more susceptible to more bias. So therefore that could be usher too. Nevertheless, we're going to learn right over here. Itmar was taught. Bebei Rav Amri, in the yeshiva of Rav, it was taught. Rav Shari. Rav said it's permitted to be boiled on Shabbos, to be boiled the first time on Friday night. Why? You're making a wound or you're making a Pesach? The answer is we're going to hold right now, the Gemara thinks that Rav holds that Dover She'ena Miskavein is permitted. That means that there is a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. If somebody did something wrong, but he didn't intend to do anything wrong, is he required to bring a carbon chatas? The example is that if someone takes a lawn chair and drags it along his lawn, and his intention is to bring it to the other side of the backyard, but at the same time, there's a possibility while he's schlepping the chair, he's making a groove in the ground, so it's like plowing. But that's not his intention. So Rab Shimon holds it's permitted to do something like that. You're allowed to schlep goyra oda mita v'safsel. You're allowed to schlep the chair on the bench along the ground, even if potentially, not guaranteed, that you're going to make a furrow in the ground. And that's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's usher. Rabbi Yehuda holds something like that is usher. So Rav, who says Rav Shari, Rav permitted you to do biyah on this woman, it must be that he holds like Rab Shimon that even if you ended up doing something wrong, it's permitted because davar she'ena miskaven. If that's not your intention is not to make a wound. Your intention is not to make a Pesach. Your intention is just to do the first time intercourse. It's the first time biyah. Therefore, Rav says it's shari. Shmuel says asar. So Shmuel, who holds it's prohibited, he's probably going to hold like Rabbi Yehuda. That's the way the version was taught in the yeshiva of Rav. Ben Nehardoi Amri, in the yeshiva of Nehardoi, where Shmuel was the Rosh Yeshiva, the Gemara says they said that Rav was Asr, Shmuel Ashari. And they said that Rav said it was Asr, and Shmuel was the one that permitted biyah on Shabbos. So it's a funny thing that in the yeshiva of Rav, they said Rav was the one that permitted biyah on Shabbos. And Nehardoi said no. In the yeshiva of Shmuel, which Shmuel's from Nehardoi, they said Shmuel was the one that permitted, and Rav prohibited. Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak v'simanech. If you want to remember who said what, Elu makilin la'atzman ve'elu makilin la'atzman. Each yeshiva said that my rabbi was lenient. That's basically it. Rav, in the yeshiva of Rav, they said Rav was lenient. And the yeshiva of Shmuel, they said Shmuel was the one that was lenient to be boiled on Shabbos. So, okay, let's go with the yeshiva of Rav. Rav says it's permitted to be boiled on Shabbos. And it must be that Rav holds like who? Like Rabbi Shimon, that says Dover she'eno miskavein is permitted. So the Gemara says Rav Shari, would Rav permit because he holds like Rav Shimon, Rav Shimi bar Chizkiya Mishmei Rav. Rav Shimi bar Chizkiya said in the name of Rav, Hi Mesachriya Dinazaisa. Hi, Lewis. We're in the middle of Daf Vav, 5 lines from the top. So, Rav Shimi bar Chizkiya said in the name of Rav, Hi Mesachriya Dinazaisa, a stopper for, let's say, a bottle. Okay, a stopper for a beer bottle. Imagine a beer bottle that has an opening on top, cap is off, and you have a stopper. What was the stopper made of? They used to make the stopper of rags, and they would stuff it into the hole. The rags was wet because presumably from the beer. So he said, Asr lahaduka b'yamtav. You're not allowed to turn it back and close off the beer bottle on Yom Tov. Why? Because there's a possibility that you're going to squeeze out the beer that's in the rags, that's using it as a stopper, and you're going to squeeze out the because you're trying to firmly put it in place. So on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to turn that because you're doing squeezing out something from a rag on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to squeeze a mop, and you're not allowed to squeeze a rag on Yom Tov. So why would Rav prohibit that? Because he must hold like Rabbi Yehuda, who says Davar Shein Miskaven is aser. So we see that the opinion of Rav is aligned with Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Shimon. So therefore, how could Rav permit you to do bia for the first time on Shabbos? That's the question. Answers the Gemara that Bahu, in the case with the bottle stopper, Afili Rab Shimon Moida. Even Rab Shimon would agree. Now, normally Rab Shimon holds Dover She'ein Miskaven is what? Permitted, meaning that one is, if you're not for sure you're going to do the Avera, like dragging the chair across the lawn, right? You're not for sure going to make a furrow in the ground. So Rab Shimon says, in that case, if you eventually did make a furrow in the ground, you didn't do an Avera. But if you're guaranteed to do something, even Rab Shimon would agree that's prohibited. And that's the case of the Mesruchid and Azaisa. Automatically, you're guaranteed to do squeezing of liquid out of that rag. And even Rab Shimon, even if you hold like Rab Shimon, he would hold that it would be also to do something like that if you're guaranteed to do that on Yom Tov, even if that's not your intention. The Abaye v'Rava, the Amri Tavai, Abaye and Rava both said, we saw this in Masechta Shabbos, Moed Rab Shimon. Even though Rab Shimon holds Davar She'ein Miskaven is mutter, what about this case? They used to play with the head of a chicken? Okay, kids used to play with the head of a chicken. Are you, as a guy, allowed to say, well, I'm going to pull the head off of a live chicken and give it to my son to play with, and say, my intention is not to kill the chicken. My intention is to give my son a toy. Rab Shimon would agree in that case that's also because it's automatic guaranteed that you're killing a chicken. But psik reisha, you're going to knock a head off the chicken's body. The law yomos, it's not going to die. Certainly, it's going to die. When it's a guarantee that it's going to happen, even Rab Shimon would be a moida that it's asar. And therefore, the case of the beer, even Rab Shimon, even if Rav, who's presumably holds like Rab Shimon, would agree that it's asar to put it firmly in place on Yom Tov. The way to put it into modern perspective is that suppose you left the light on in the refrigerator. Well, when you go open the refrigerator door, your intention is not to turn on the light. You're just here to take out the milk. But since automatically the light is going to go on, so even Rab Shimon, who normally holds Davar She'ein Miskaven, if that's not your intention, it's permitted. But since it's psikresha, it's guaranteed to happen, even Rab Shimon would agree that's awesome. Okay, so you're telling me so far where we're holding that Rav holds like Rab Shimon. Now, Rab Chia Barashi Omer Rav, but there's the Rab Chia Barash said in the name of Rav, Halachic Rabbi Yehuda, that Rav holds that the halach is like Rabbi Yehuda, Davar She'ein Miskaven is also. Rab Chanan Bar Ami Omer Shmuel, Halachic Rab Shimon, and he said in the name of Shmuel that the halach is like Rab Shimon. Shmuel holds the halachic Rab Shimon. And Rav Chia Bar Oven Masno Beloy Gavrei. Rab Chia Bar Oven, actually, he didn't have any intermediary. He just had the tradition of Rav saying it, and he didn't need Rav Chia Barashi to tell me in the name of Rav. And it says He said, Rav himself said, I heard it basically, halacha Rabbi Yehuda. And Shmuel says, halacha Rabbi Shimon. So there we are back to square one. If Rav holds halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, that davar she'eino miskaven is aser, then why could he hold that you're allowed to do bia for the first time with a woman, a virgin, on the Friday night? You're making her wounding, so you're wounding her, and you're causing blood to come out of her, and you're creating a Pesach. And even though that's not your intention is to do bia, but at the end of the day, that's what's happening. It should be aser. Answers the Gemara, you're right. Lo'ilam Rav Rabbi Yehuda svirale. Rav could hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Lahach lishana. According to the opinion that what is dam basula, and we discussed this yesterday, we couldn't figure it out, but if you learn that dam basulim, that means that by the hymen, when you break the hymen, is the dam mifka pocket. It's just deposited there, which is hard to understand because I thought blood always moves around. But what the Gemara is thinking is that the blood is like deposited like the pus of a wart. And therefore, that's not considered wounding her. And therefore, the only problem is that you're making a opening. The problem, even if you learn mifkat pocket, is that what's the problem with doing bia on the first time is you're making a pesach, which means you're making that woman more susceptible from future bias. You're widening the hole. But the answer is, Rav will hold mikalkel hu eitzla pesach. That's a destructive thing you're doing for the opening. Why is it destructive? Because you're making her turn from a virgin to a boil, a woman who had a lot of bias already. And therefore, she's, so to speak, less desirable. So therefore, if anything that's destructive is not considered constructive, and therefore you're not chayev on Shabbos. And that's why Rav will hold it's permitted to do bia for the first time on Friday night. Lahach lishana, even if you, according to the opinion that the hymen blood, the amar, when you break through the hymen blood, dam chaburi michbar, you're actually wounding the woman, and therefore you're ripping blood vessels and you're causing blood to ooze out, and that should be asar. But mekalkel b'chaburuhu, Rav holds like the opinion of another opinion of Rabbi Shimon. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda, davar she'eino miskaven is asar, but Rabbi Shimon holds that when you do destructive things, a destructive manner, even if you're wounding and it's for a purpose, but it's at the end of the day, every wound by definition is a destructive type of action, and therefore it's not prohibited to be done on Shabbos. So we're holding right now. Let's remember, Rav was of the opinion that what it's permitted to do bia for the first time on Friday night, and Shmuel says you're not permitted. Says the Gemara, Mosev Rav Chizda. So Rav Chizda asked a question on Shmuel. Shmuel is a Moira, and Shmuel holds you're not permitted to do bia for the first time on Friday night. Well, I'll prove it to you that you can. This Brisa says, Tinoikis, let's say you have a 8-year-old girl, okay? She's an 8-year-old girl, she got married. Shlohigia zmana lirois v'nises. She never reached a time where she's menstruating, okay? She's an 8-year-old girl and she got married. Now, so when she's going to do bia with her husband for the first time, that bia, that blood that comes out of her is not damnida because she's not menstruating. So therefore, Beis Shammai says, Noistin lo abo leilas. We give her the first 4 nights. For the first 4 nights that she sees, any bia that she does for the first 4 days, that's not called nida blood. That's called hymen blood, and therefore she's not tamei, according to Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says ad shetechia hamaka. She can continue to have relations until she actually had relations and she didn't see blood anymore. Then we know that the wound healed, because the first couple of times, the wall is not lubricated inside the woman, and therefore there's friction there, and it maybe causes a little bleeding. When that is totally healed, then then all the blood that came until that time, we consider it not considered dam nida, and it's considered hymen blood, and therefore she's not tameh. Now, that's only a girl that was under the age of menstruating. Let's say she's over 11, 12. She's getting married, and she actually has seen menstrual blood, and she got married. But it's not her period. So when she gets married and she's hymen blood, so Beis Shammai says, Noisnu lo leil rishon. We give her the first night, she gets a free pass. If she sees blood after that first bia, she's not tameh. The first blood that comes out is permitted, and therefore it's not dam nida. Beis Hillel says, ad motzoi Shabbos, we wait till Saturday night, and we give her Abba Leilas 4 nights. She gets married Wednesday night, so we give her Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. Now, what does it mean? You give her 4 nights. What the Gemara is thinking now is that if, let's say, he didn't fully penetrate inside of her, so he did like 4 small little bias, but no deep penetration. So anytime she sees blood during the first 4 days of marriage, during those first 4 days, that blood is not considered dam nida. That's called the first time hymen blood. So that's the Beis Hillel's opinion. But as a side point of Beis Hillel's opinion is that he mentions, so to speak, that one can do bia for the first time on Friday night, because for the first 4 nights he's just doing a little bia. He's not penetrating deeply. So therefore, it's this kind of bleeding. This kind of bleeding is from the hymen, but what we do see, there's Beis Hillel is of the opinion that you can do bia on Friday night. So it's a question against Shmuel, who said you're not permitted. So let's go to Amud Beis. My love, don't you understand this brisa to tell you the Eloi Boel? If you didn't do bia, but you did he's only doing a little bit of a bia for the first night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. Matzi Ba'el, he can continue to do the bia afilu b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos. So this is a question against who? Against Shmuel. Amar Rava. So Rava says, wait a second, loy levar mishabbos. What Beis Hillel meant is that you do bia up until Matzah Shabbos, but you're not going to do any bia on Shabbos. So what he meant is you do bia Thursday night, you do Wednesday night, Thursday night, skip Friday night, and add Matzah Shabbos, and Matzah Shabbos, we give it another time. So the Gemara says that's what Rabbi said. Amalei Abayas, so Rabbi said that's not a good teretz. Well, add Mitzvah Shabbos, add boy Lailas Ketani. The Beis Hillel used the phrase, and he was very specific about his phrase, that you have until Matzah Shabbos, and you have 4 nights. The only way you have 4 nights is if you include Friday night. And so it must be that he's doing bia for the first time on Friday night, because we're presuming that he didn't penetrate for the first few nights. And that's why it's dam besulim. It's considered dam besulim and not dam nida, not blood of nida. So again, it's a question against Shmuel. From Beis Hillel, it seems that one can do bia on Friday night. Ella Amar Rava says no. Kisha Baal. Really, we're talking about that he did bia. He did bia on the first night. He did the total of full bia on the first night, right? And therefore, we give him till Matzah Shabbos. Any blood that comes out, is the first 4 nights. The first night is, if the first night is considered dam basulam. So the Gemara says, "My kamashmalan." Then what is the novelty of that? If he did bia? Then if he did a full bia on Wednesday night, then she's not a basula anymore. So what is he telling me, that you can continue to do bia for and Thursday night and Friday night, Saturday night? You already did a full bia on Wednesday night. The blood that came out is the hymen blood. She's not a nida, and you can continue to do bia even on Friday night. Why should I think that it's also to do bia on Friday night? Kamash malam the shari lemilva b'Shabbos. It's still permitted to have bia on Shabbos. That's the idea of Beis Hillel, by saying ad matzoi Shabbos. You can continue to do bia if you don't see menstrual blood. You can continue to do bia even on Shabbos. even if you did a full-fledged bia on Wednesday night. Why? Because why should I think it's Asr? Shmuel, because of Shmuel says, because the Amar Shmuel said like this. Because I would think that although you did bia, a good bia on Wednesday night, at the end of the day, her channel is very narrow still. And if you do continue to do bia, even if you're going to do bia on Friday night, there's a potential that you're going to do a little wounding there because it's still not fully open. And I might think that it'll be also to do that. Kamash Malon, that it's permitted to be boil on Shabbos. Kiddush Shmuel, the Amar Shmuel, Pirtza Dechuka. Let's say you have a narrow opening. Let's say you have a narrow opening into a cave, okay? Mutter likonis ba b'Shabbos. One is permitted to walk in there on Shabbos. Ba'afal pi, even though shemasher tzeroiros, even though you're knocking down some pebbles off the side wall, so that could be like, building or demolishing, still, it's not for certain that you're going to do it. We don't answer it because we hold it like Shmuel, like Rab Shimon, Davar Shem Iskaven's mutter anyway. So where we're coming down right at this point over here, again, Shmuel holds you're not permitted to do bia for the first time with a basula on Friday night. You can't do it. But that Beis Hillel says that you could do it, he's talking about you already did it on Wednesday night. And Beis Hillel is telling you can continue to do bia even on Friday night, even though her opening is not fully open, it's still a little bit narrow. You're still permitted to do bia, continue to do bia, but only if you did a good bia, only if you had a good tashmish on Wednesday night. But to do it for the first time on Friday night, Shmuel holds it's aser. Nu Gemara. Mosiv Rabbi Yosef asked the question against Shmuel. How could you, Shmuel, hold that it's also to do bia for the first time on Friday night? Let's see this Mishnah. This is a famous Mishnah in Masechta Brachas. Chasen, a chasen that got married on Wednesday night. Pato mekriya shma. He doesn't have to daven Marav and read Kriya Shma, Laila Harishan, the first night, ad Motzoi Shabbos, until Motzoi Shabbos. That means if he didn't do bia Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, all those times he's pater from Kriya Shma. In loy asamasa, only on the condition that he never had intercourse with her. Why? Because he is always considered to be an oisik b'mitzvah. He's busy to do a mitzvah. He's supposed to do that first tashmish with her, the first bia with her. And therefore, once you're busy to do a mitzvah at night, you're pater from the other mitzvah of Kriya Shma. If, let's say, after Motzei Shabbos, right, and he still didn't do it with her, we say his mind can handle both. He's not considered busy with the mitzvah bia. He can still do Kriya Shma and do bia. But the first 4 nights, he never did it before, and usually they didn't, date that long, so he doesn't know the girl at all. So his mind is so busy thinking about doing the mitzvah of having relations, he is considered to be busy with the mitzvah, and he's pater from reading the Kriya Shma. But what does this Mishnah imply? That you're pater from reading Kriya Shma every night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. If you didn't do it, you're pater from reading Kriya Shma. So it implies that you're permitted to do bia on Friday night with the first time with a basula. My love, doesn't this Mishnah imply ditrid, that the boya lemivel? He's busy because he needs to do the bia. And therefore, that's why he's pater from reading Kriya Shma, because he's about to do the mitzvah of bia with this woman on Friday night, so he's pater. So this is a clear Mishnah against Shmuel, who said you're not permitted to do bia for the first time on Friday night. Answers the Gemara, Omalei Abaya, loy. Not so. You read the Mishnah wrong. The Trid, the loy ba'il. He's busy that on Friday night you don't do bia, but he's busy. So why is he pater from reading Kriya Shma? Because he's anxious that he did not do the bia. He got married Wednesday night. He couldn't do it for whatever reason. He was tired after the wedding. Thursday night, he still didn't do it. Friday night, he's not allowed to do it, but he's still pater from Kriya Shma because he's anxious. He has like brain fog. He's anxious that he still didn't perform the mitzvah. And therefore, once you're anxious about something, you can't concentrate on the Kriya Shma, and therefore, you're pater from reading the Kriya Shma. That's the way Abaya understood this Mishnah. And the Mishnah still could hold that you're not allowed to do Bia on Friday night. Amalei Rava, umishum tirda potter, just because somebody is anxious about something, is he potter from reading the Kriyishma? Elamata, what would you say about this? Tavas finasa bayam, if he took a big financial loss, his ship sank at sea. Hachanami the potter, would that exempt a person from reading Kriyishma? If you would say yes, person who took a big financial hit, he can't concentrate on the Kriyishma, so he's potter from reading the Kriyishma. That's not true. The same name Rav Ovel, somebody who lost is a mourner, right? He just buried a loved one. He has to do every mitzvah in the Torah. He has to read the Kriyishma. Tefillin he doesn't have to put on. Shenema pe'er. That's something that says that you shouldn't put on the pe'er, who it says by Yecheskel that he was permitted to put on tefillin, but all other avelim are not. But what do you see from here? That an ovel, if you're just anxious about something, you still have to push your mind, to focus your mind to read the Kriyishma. So how can you tell me that this guy who didn't do the Bia yet, just because he's anxious, he should be exempt from doing the Kriyishma? Ella Amar Rava says like this. You're right. The Rava has to come on to another teretz, that this Mishnah actually holds you are permitted to do Bia on Friday night. Shmuel. How could Shmuel argue on a Mishnah? And says the Gemara, Tanoihi. Rava is going to say it's actually a machlekes Tanoim. The Tanachada, one brisa says, Imloi also Maisa Berishain. If you didn't have Bia on Wednesday night, potter. B'sheni, you potter on Thursday night. B'sheni, if you didn't do it on Thursday night, potter af b'shlish, then you're potter from doing it on Friday night, because this brisa holds that you're always busy to do the mitzvah. That you're busy. You're supposed to do the bia on Friday night. You're supposed to do the bia on Friday night, and therefore this brisa holds you can do bia on Friday night. Utanya idach, but there's another brisa, and this brisa is a Tana, and this brisa is what is the source of Shmuel. Rishon v'sheni potter. The first night, Wednesday night, you potter from Kriyishma. Sheni, the second night, Thursday night, if you didn't do Bia, you potter from Kriyishma. Shlishi, but Friday night, since you can't do the Bia, chayev. You're chayev to read the Kriyishma. So we see that Shmuel has a source, Tana, that holds that on Friday night, you're not allowed to do the Bia for the first time with a Basula. And that's Shmuel's opinion, but Ein Chanami, maybe that Mishnah holds you could do Bia on Friday night. That's the way Rava learned that Mishnah. But Abaya still wanted to hold that Mishnah of Chasam Potam Kriyishma actually holds you not allowed to do Bia on Friday night. But your question was, you had a very good, legitimate question. Just because you're anxious, I mean, if you can't do the Bia on Friday night, why is he potter from Kriyishma? Just because he's anxious shouldn't be a patur on Kriyishma. As you see, an Ovel is still supposed to read the Kriyishma. And says Abaya, Hosaname betir the pligi. It's very different because here, when you're anxious about not performing the mitzvah, that will give you an exemption of Kriyishma. If a person was anxious because he didn't perform yet the Bia, even though he's not allowed to do the Bia on Friday night, that will give him the license that he does not have to read the Kriyishma on Friday night. And it's very different than somebody who just anxious because he took a big financial loss or he's an oval. There's no inyan to be anxious just because you're an oval. You have to do the halachas of avelis, but not the tsar. But when it comes to a mitzvah, a person should be anxious. So he's anxious because of a mitzvah, even though he's not permitted to perform that mitzvah on Friday night. That will exempt him from the reading of the Kriyishma exempt in the reading of the Kriyishma on Friday night. And therefore, this machlokes Tanoim, even the Abaya is going to learn that the one that says you are required to read the Kriyishma on Friday night holds that just because you're anxious about a mitzvah doesn't exempt you from reading the Kriyishma. But the one that holds your potter apishlishi will hold that even though you're not permitted to do Bia on Friday night, you're still exempt from reading the Kriyishma, because we understand that you are anxious because you did not yet perform a mitzvah. So the anxious is because of a mitzvah that would exempt you from reading the Kriyishma. Very fascinating. Vahani tanoi, kahani tanoi. But at the end of the day, and this is the bottom line over here, there is a machlekes tanoim if you're allowed to have a bia for the first time with a basula. It's not just a machlekes between Rav and Shmuel. Tanya, we found a brisa. Hakoinis says basula loyiva batchila b'Shabbos. Someone who marries a basula should not have the first relations on Friday night. The chachamim matirim. Chachamim hold that it is permitted. Man chachamim. Who is the opinion of the chachamim that's permitted to be on Friday night? Amar Rabbi Rab Shimon Rab Shimon the Amar Davar Sheni Miskavein is mutter. If that's not your intention, it's mutter. So therefore, if you hold dam mifka pakid, your intention is not to make an opening. Your intention is to do bia. So therefore, it's permitted. And even if you hold dam, you're wounding the woman, it's still permitted because that's not your intention. Your intention is not for the blood. Your intention is not to make an opening. Your intention is to for your benefit, to have bia, to have relations with this woman. And since it's this things happen, so the wounding of the woman happens and blood comes out. That's not or a pesach is formed. That's nothing to be concerned about. Right? And therefore, the Chachamim permit you to do bia on Friday night. So now comes the bomb question. Wait a second. We just said before that if it's guaranteed to happen, even Reb Shimon will hold its asa. Guaranteed to open the refrigerator and the light will turn on. You can't open the refrigerator, even if that's not your intention. So how could the Chachamim hold that it's permitted to do bia Friday night? Automatically, there's always going to be blood. Amalei Abaya, v'homoide Rab Shimon agrees, but psikreishav layamos, that if it's automatically going to happen, then it's not permitted. You're not allowed to just rip the head off a chicken and give it to your child to play with and say, my intention is not to kill the chicken. If it's automatically going to happen, even Rab Shimon will hold its asa. So how are you going to answer that question? Why would the Chachamim, who is Rab Shimon, hold it permitted? Amalei. So Amalei, so Rabba or Rava answered to Abaya that there is a way to do bia with a virgin. Hear this: to do bia with a virgin, even without letting blood happen. Loi kahaloli bavliim. Not everybody is like the Babylonians. That's like a needle. He's needling him. She'ein bekiim bahatoya. They don't know how to divert the bia. Yesh bekiin, some know, most people, yesh bekiin batoya, they know how to expertly go in without making it painful for her, without any blood coming out. They just, as we explained, that the hymen doesn't cover the whole opening, obviously, because how would she bleed? The hymen just covers like the rim of the opening of the vagina. And therefore, they slip in maybe on the side or whatever the vagina is, they figure that wherever the hymen is, they slip around it, and therefore they don't damage it. So the people are experts in doing in tashmish, and experts in intercourse. And therefore, it's not a guaranteed that it's going to happen. So answers Frag the Gemara in Cain. If a lot of people know how to do bia, right? They're experts at intercourse. So why are they potter from Kriyishma? Tyrid Lamali. Why are they potter from Kriyishma? They're so busy, they don't know, they're worried about wounding the woman. We're dealing with experts over here. And experts should not have be any anxious about doing intercourse for the first time. Answers the Gemara, you're right. Somebody who's an expert has to read the Kriyishma. But with the Mishnah that says that your potter from reading the Kriyishma is lisha'ena baki, somebody who's not an expert at reading at doing bia. If you're not an expert at doing bia, then you are potter from reading the Kriyishma because you're anxious about it. Now the Gemara asks, okay, but an expert will be able to do bia, and it's not necessarily they'll be bleeding. But a non-expert should not do bia on Friday night because he's sloppy and he's certainly going to make blood happen. So why did the Chachamim say everybody's permitted to do bia on Friday night? Yoimru The Chachamim should say, Baki mutter, somebody who's an expert is permitted to do bia on Friday night. She'eina baki, somebody who's not an expert, is usher, is not permitted to do bia on Friday night, because he's for sure going to make blood happen. And psik reisha, if it's guaranteed going to happen, it should not be permitted to do bia on Friday night. So why did the Chachamim say, across the board, that it's permitted to do bia on Friday night with a basula? Answers the Gemara, Roiv Bekinheim. The Chachamim was talking about the majority of people. I don't know what yeshivas they went to, but the majority of people are bucky in knowing how to do intercourse without making it bleed. They understand the whole anatomy, and therefore that you can say the psak across the board that it's mutter to do bia Friday night, and that's for most people. One more question, then we'll stop. Amalei Rav bar Rav Chana Labaya. Rav Chana bar Abaya said like this: if most people know how to do bia without having blood flow, they can slip in and slip out, and the girl won't feel a thing, right? So then, why do we learn in a brisa? There's a brisa later on that in certain places they were so strict that when the first time the husband and wife had relations, they would put guards outside. And what would the guards do outside that door? They would check the woman that she didn't slip in a sheet full of blood to try to fake that there's blood, and they would check the man when they're leaving that he's not taking the blood from the woman and slipping it out, so that he can taina that there's no besulim here. So that's what's called shushbinin. That's they would put security guards, and also they would put a sheet. They wanted to make sure everything was clear. They would put like a sheet underneath them, so when the blood drips, they can right away see that she was a basula. So what they're trying to avoid is that the man should not be able to go and say, "Oh, my wife wasn't a virgin." So we put security guards to make sure that everything, the game is fair, and also we put a white sheet underneath them, and therefore we can ascertain whether she was a psul or not. Now, if you're trying to tell me that there are people that do bia, that are experts at doing bia, and most people are experts at doing bia, and they could slip in and slip out without dam basulim, what do you gain by having security guards there? What do you gain by having security guards? What do you gain by having a white sheet where they do bia? He can slip in and slip out and then walk to Bezin and say, "See, my wife was not a basula. You see, there's no blood." And the reason why there's no blood, because he's an expert bia, and therefore he did an expert way that to not make any blood, to make it a very clean bia, then that there is no blood. Amalei. So Rabbiya answered Rav Chanan, Hasam, Rav Bar Chanan, Shema Yir v'Abed. Really, if he did it this way, she will taina, I am a basula. You slipped in and slipped out, but I am a basula. And then they would medically check to see inside of her if her hymen is still attached, and that will prove him wrong. That that she's still a basula. That the reason why they have shishbinin is maybe she will see blood. The abed, and he's going to try to throw the blood in the garbage, so that he could taina, that he'd say that I didn't find blood with her. So that's why we're going to put security guards and put mappas there and make sure that the game is fair, that he couldn't try to sneak in to say that she didn't have blood. But in case he did a sneaky hatoya type of bia, an expert bia, then she will say, I'm still a basula, and then they'll medically check her and show that she's still a basula, so that we wouldn't believe him anyway. So that ends this whole sugya about having bia for the first time on Friday night.
I have a